You say you answer to some sort of authority. They only want me dead because I'm an embarrassment. Because I do what they can't. What kind of authority is that?
Batman, despite having no powers, despite not having any ties to cosmic forces or magical beings, is by far one of the most dangerous characters within the DC universe. So we're lucky that he just so happens to be a hero who values justice, law, and order. If not for that, the DC universe would be, as the kids say, cooked. However, since Batman is relatively a nice person, it's always interesting when a writer subverts the character, telling a what-if story of what would happen if Batman didn't exactly have our best interests. This is told in many ways, using variants of Batman, characters that are derivative of Batman, and even darker versions of the Caped Crusader himself. So in this video, let's take a look at the many iterations of an evil Batman to decide which version is truly the most terrifying.
Humans, elevating those that keep guard until they watch too close, and the so-called hero condoning the very act he would condemn.
I have a question. Does breaking the boundaries of what's considered morally right make you evil? I ask this because although Batman is generally considered to be a good person, he does engage in practices that cause some members of the Justice League and even the Bat family to view him in a more negative light, and on some occasions, as an enemy. So typically Batman in his base form, the traditional version seen in the mainline continuity, isn't evil. He's a man who fights for justice, law, and order, and at times shows genuine feats of compassion. Batman is a symbol of human perseverance, an example of how as long as you fight for what you believe in, you can make a difference no matter how many obstacles you face. But since Batman is a human in a world of extraordinary beings, he has to even the odds in some way. Let's make one thing clear. Batman is an incredibly distrustful person. I mean, this is the same dude who built a powerful satellite to spy on several heroes within the DC universe. He creates dozens of backup plans for every situation, and he has several failsafes just in case something were to ever go wrong.
Why don't you cut her some slack?
We don't know anything about her. She claims to have no memory of anything prior to splashing down in Gotham Bay.
I'm not saying there aren't loose ends.
Having no control over her powers is more than a loose end. She's dangerous.
This paranoia has kept him and his loved ones alive for years, and on more than one occasion saved him from the most impossible of situations. However, this natural distrust of others leads him to destroying his personal and professional relationships. Take this for example. When he first met Cyborg, he installed a virus into his data that would essentially inflict him with electric shock-like seizures on the off chance that he turned evil.
That's impossible. The data stamp on the virus. You uploaded it the day we met. Boy, that's low.
Granted, this is within the Injustice universe. However, can we be sure no other version of Batman has done this? The minute you meet Batman, assume he already came up with a way of taking you out, making him hard to trust. I mean, there's literally an entire story called Justice League Tower of Babel, where Batman created contingency plans against every member of the Justice League, and some of these contingencies are the most messed up things I've ever seen, such as making Aquaman afraid of water, giving the Flash light speed seizures that puts him in a state of torture that he feels lasted several days, or maybe inflicting Superman with mutations that makes his skin turn inside out. These contingencies were so messed up that they had to change them in Justice League Doom. So Batman, although heroic, does engage in very morally questionable activities, but never goes too far.
Should any of the core members of the League turn rogue, We need to have plans in place to handle each and every one of us, should we become a threat. The members of the League are my teammates, but we need to be prepared for the worst.
But what if Batman had no strong moral code to hold him back? The character Prometheus explores this possibility. Prometheus is Batman if he hated justice. Prometheus traveled the world just like Batman to train and gain a genius mastery of different skills. Prometheus, like Batman, is incredibly skilled in hand-to-hand combat, but what makes him dangerous is his battlesuit, which downloaded information on several superheroes, which allows him to come up with contingency plans. His abnormal strength and great skill allowed him to take on every member of the Justice League and almost win every time he fought them. However, because he's not as focused and paranoid as Batman is, he's often taken out in the most ridiculous ways possible. The Batman of Zur-En-Arrh is an alternative personality created by Batman. His purpose was to take over his body if Batman were to ever be incapacitated due to some mental attack, or if Batman lost the drive to continue his mission. The Batman of Zur-En-Arrh is essentially Batman, but without his compassion and humanity. The Bruce Wayne side is gone, and all that's left is Batman's cunning, focused, and violent side. Zur-En-Arrh is very unstable and violent, to the point where he's willing to torture and kill his foes if driven too far, and he has no care towards Batman's allies, referring to them as soldiers. Because Zur-En-Arrh is Batman unrestrained, he's also created a failsafe for members of the Justice League and even himself.
Mission protocols activated. Objective: terminate the Batman in the scenario where he uses lethal force.
Preview.
This robot is named Failsafe, created to kill Batman in a scenario where he turned evil, being programmed to perfectly counter all of Batman's known tactics. Failsafe is so dangerous that it was even programmed to kill Superman and kill every other member of the Justice League with shocking ease. Batman of Zur-En-Arrh showcases how dangerous and destructive Batman's paranoia can be if unrestrained and allowed to persist. However, being paranoid doesn't necessarily make you evil unless it was allowed to go too far.
I do my best work in the dark. I used to think that too. But what have you ever accomplished from there? Aside from scaring a few punks half to death and putting a few more in jail. It all adds up. Not fast enough. If you really want to make a difference, if you want to change the system instead of just patching it, you can't be subtle. You've got to step into the sunlight. Take over, like we did.
This tendency for Batman to be incredibly paranoid to the point of mass spying is often kept in check by many heroes in the DC universe, ensuring that he never oversteps his boundaries. However, what if he isn't kept in check? What if for whatever reason, Batman is allowed to do whatever he wants with no fear of retaliation? The Authoritarian Batman is a version of the character who decides to strip the freedoms away from his citizens in his pursuit of enforcing justice and security. A Batman like this already lacks any form of solid moral code, and thus often rationalizes his evil acts as acts for the greater good of the people. Justice Lords Batman and Tim Drake Batman, present in Titans of Tomorrow, explore this idea. They are versions of the character who have traded freedom for security, as they've essentially helped create an authoritarian society. Justice Lords Batman exists within a police state where even the smallest of crimes can lead to your arrest.
If you want people to respect the big laws, you've got to enforce the small ones.
Get your hands off me. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I'll pay it, whatever it is. And the food, it was good, really.
The city feels lifeless, likely because everybody is afraid to commit any crimes, and it seems as if most of his rogues gallery have been lobotomized, likely by Superman. He likely has no qualms with killing if it came down to it, as he doesn't react when Superman kills Lex Luthor.
Well, it had to be done.
To the mind of this Batman, a city under authoritarian rule is much better than the lawless and crime-filled cesspool Gotham used to be. Tim Drake Batman, who's present in Titans of Tomorrow, is similar. With the help of the Titans, he's turned a majority of the US into a police state. Some rebellion started up. However, according to lore details, Batman had Raven strip away the free will of the citizens, which essentially makes everybody apathetic towards their oppression. Batman in this world is ruthless, as it's stated that he's killed every member of the Rogues Gallery, explaining why you don't see much Batman villains pop up in the story. He also engages in the torture of Deathstroke for information, showing just how far he's willing to go. He tries to rationalize what he's doing, stating that the world they exist in is the best case scenario and it could have been much worse.
What? What, your moral code just won't allow for that? It's too hard to cross that line? No! God Almighty, no!
The most definitive trait of Batman is his no-kill rule. It's a part of the character that's persisted for the longest, and often this rule is so intrinsic to his character that there are stories built around it alone, exploring the limits of this code and why it's so crucial for Batman to uphold it. However, Batmen with shaky moral codes are the versions of the characters who, although don't tend to kill, will kill if the opportunity presents itself, or if they have no choice. Being a Batman with a shaky moral code doesn't necessarily make you evil. Take Bale, for example. His Batman has a no-kill rule. Presumably, at least. But if he's presented with the choice of letting a villain die or go through the extra effort to save them, he'll likely choose the former.
I won't kill you. But I don't have to save you.
Plenty of Batman adapt this aspect of the character. There's Azrael from the Nightfall storyline, who, although tries to maintain Batman's code, is much more brutal and will allow a criminal to die if the opportunity is right. The most popular depictions of a Batman who used this narrative device are Affleck's Batman and Michael Keaton's Batman. Both of them won't necessarily go out of their way to kill you. However, there's no clear indication on what decides on whether they'll kill you or not. It's kind of like a coin toss. So if you encounter them and you're a criminal, just hope to God that they're nice and will decide to spare you.
New rules. We're criminals, Alfred. We've always been criminals. Nothing's changed.
There are versions of Batman who don't possess a shaky moral code. They've thrown away their moral codes entirely and kill criminals with no hesitation, no matter how minor the crime. Batmen who've thrown away their moral codes often wield many weapons as they no longer seek to spare anybody. Jason Todd's Batman is someone who employs lethal tactics as he arms himself with 2 pistols for the purpose of killing any criminal he comes across. Even if he doesn't kill, he sure as hell will brutalize you, and is even willing to injure heroes like the members of the Bat family. Jason Todd's Batman is dangerous due to his unstable nature. Jason already had darkness within his heart as a young boy, and after his death at the hands of the Joker and being bathed within the Lazarus pit, He was a ticking time bomb, stricken by immense trauma, so you can expect the type of death and destruction he'd bring upon Gotham if he was allowed to continue to operate as Batman with no retaliation. Luckily, most versions of Batman, even when they have no moral code, are a bit more mentally well. First introduced in the Dark Knight's Metal storyline, this Batman is nearly identical to the mainline version in every way, except much more intelligent, and he wields a huge arsenal of different weapons. The Grim Knight seeks vengeance against the criminals of Gotham. However, this version kills every criminal he comes across, no matter the severity of the crimes they commit. He murdered the Red Hood before he became the Joker, even though Red Hood didn't commit any serious crime. When Jim Gordon captured the Grim Knight, he blew up all the cops on the rooftop. He crashed a series of blimps full of explosives into Blackgate Prison and Arkham Asylum, ensuring that every inmate would perish in hellish destruction. In the end, the Grim Knight installed a series of surveillance cameras all over Gotham, ensuring that he would terrorize the people of Gotham for years to come, no matter how insignificant of a crime that was committed, even going as far as to build a satellite with a gun attached to shoot criminals in Gotham from space. The Grim Knight is a perfect example if he never had a no-kill rule present, a lawless vigilante who murders anyone he considers to be a criminal, and due to his resources, he can terrorize anyone who dares to stand in the way of his crusade.
Isn't that funny?
Now these are Batmen who don't even count as Batman anymore. They don't care about people's lives whatsoever and will kill anyone just for the sake of killing or to accomplish some selfish goal. These versions of Batman have no qualms with killing men, women, and children while smiling about it. These are the types of Batman who are not particularly well written. Most of the time, their actions can be deemed as edgy and maybe a bit too horrific to have any narrative depth. Nemesis, for example, present in the comic series Nemesis and Nemesis Reloaded. His origin is different based on which comic you read, but all you need to know is that he's essentially Batman in terms of costume, his drive to accomplish his mission, wealth, and fighting skill. But instead of fighting crime, he goes after lawmakers, the military, and even cops who annoyed him recently. His goals are selfish and downright horrid, and he'll do anything to accomplish whatever demented crusade he's on. He'll crash a jet into a large population of people, he'll blackmail people into committing acts of murder, and then cause them to once again crash a plane into a crowd of people, and he'll kidnap 2 kids, and then inseminate one of them using the of the brother. This is only a fraction of the deplorable things Nemesis has done, and if you dislike edgy stories for the sake of being edgy, I'd recommend you avoid reading the Nemesis comics. Compared to Nemesis, the Batman who laughs is much tamer. However, don't get it twisted, he's still very much a vile interpretation of an evil Batman who's also very edgy. Being a Jokerized version of Batman, the Batman who laughs basically does everything you'd expect the Joker to do, but on a much grander scale, ending in acts of terror that not even the Joker can achieve. But you guys know this already, the Batman who laughs is practically the most popular evil Batman to ever exist. However, just because you write a Batman who has no qualms about killing everyone doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be edgy.
The only answer to this world of perfect order is
chaos.
This is shown perfectly with Russian Batman from the story Superman Red Sun. Within the slums of Russia, the Batman of this universe saw his parents die either by being gunned down or die from starvation due to the government's apathy towards the people. Angered by the Russian government and Superman's inability to save them despite their cries for help, this boy becomes a terrorist known as Batman. Emphasis on terrorist. Although he comes across as a freedom fighter of sorts, early on at least, he's nothing of the sort. Batman of this universe has one goal and one goal alone: to seek vengeance for the death of his parents, and he's only going after Superman because he was told to. One of the evil acts this Batman committed is blowing up a museum filled with civilians, giving them no time to escape safely. Batman of this universe can't let go of his trauma, and instead of channeling it for something good, he uses it as a tool of torment to inflict pain and suffering upon others. The worst part is that he honestly does not care about freeing Russia from tyranny. His entire crusade is built upon taking vengeance upon one man, regardless of the people he has to kill. Imagine a world where instead of a vigilante fighting against the criminal underworld to bring order to Gotham City, we instead get a vigilante fighting the forces of justice to gain control over the city's underworld and even ruling over Gotham himself. This is Owlman, an alternative universe version of the Caped Crusader, and he exhibits every trait I just described. He is the complete inverse of Batman, seeking to control the criminal underworld through fear and brutality. However, despite his grand goal of taking over the world, he doesn't seem to benefit from it. His heart is empty due to the death of his brother Bruce Wayne, and his motivations are shallow as he seeks control over everything for no grand purpose. Owlman is sort of nihilistic in his goals. There's no real purpose of what he's trying to achieve, to the point where he wants the world to be in perpetual chaos and even funds opposing groups to the crime syndicate, so he'll have someone to fight. A world where you rule over everything can get pretty meaningless. This sense of nihilism was a heavier focus in the animated film Crisis on Two Earths. In this iteration, Owlman isn't that different from his comic counterpart, with one significant change, which is his cosmic depression. He feels that since there are so many universes where they've made every possible choice, there's absolutely no free will or independent actions, and thus life does not matter. He'd rather kill everyone alongside him, ending all life in every multiverse as we know it. He seeks to destroy the multiverse because to him it will prove that he has some form of free will. Oh, by the way, if you haven't yet, be sure to download Marvel Strike Force. Despite downloading it many days ago, I still find myself going back every day due to its fantastic RPG combat system that still looks amazing in terms of animations and cinematic feel. And with so many Marvel characters to choose from, with more being added to the meta constantly, I don't think I'll get tired of the game's amazing systems, gameplay, or visuals anytime soon. Be sure to download Marvel Strike Force today using the link in the description or scanning the QR code.